Anthropic just dropped Claude Opus-5, and it is by far probably the best frontier large language model currently available to us underclassmen. In this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to know about how to take the most advantage and use Opus-5 for the best of its capabilities. This is a website that essentially Opus created itself. It's a full 3D application that allows me to kind of jump in, see the cartography of nowhere. Really what this is it's a 3D world. And I was able to simulate this and create this entirely in Opus-5 with virtually zero work. So what we've done here is we've essentially created a bunch of art. We've then put these art, these things up on the wall, and I'm just walking through it. Every time I mouse over, you can hear this kind of like a little ding. That's, me looking at this work and essentially cataloging it like a Pokedex. So this is not easy stuff to do, right? I mean, it's not a long time ago that this thing would have been considered a full game and sort of 3D experience in its own right. I bet you if I asked Opus-5, it could turn this into an actual virtual reality experience in a few seconds, complete with, enemies and hands and lasers and whatever the hell else I want. So I could show you benchmarks, and I will in a second. Suffice to say, Opus-5 kicks ass on virtually all benches, and I'm going to break down exactly what that looks like in a second. But I think the more important thing here at this point is, how does the model feel? What sorts of outputs can it generate that, I can rate based off taste, not necessarily little static percentages on a screen that, let's be real, don't really mean anything to us anyway. So what follows is a massive list of all the impressive things I got Opus-5 to do, the things that I consider visually stimulating and also pretty interesting. Over here is pretty neat. This is like a 3D essentially Kerbal Space Program style launch game. It allows you to build a stable orbit in by changing the trajectory of this. And so if I launch something, let's say from the launch site in that direction, what I can do is I can actually have it enter essentially the gravity of the planet, which is pretty badass. Obviously, this is kind of on the simpler design side, I would say, but it's still kind of neat that I could just ask AI to do this, and I sort of have my own simulated solar system. It really does feel like simulations are where all this stuff is going. There's Newton's cannon over here, which actually shows a bunch of these launched. And then we also have Hawkman with a big target orbit over here. We're essentially trying to make this thing. So it's both an explainer and it's also kind of a mini game. This is a simulation of fabrics and how they move in the wind. So it's sort of a cloth simulation. And you can see I'm even capable of ripping this simulation apart, which is very neat. I can't say that this uses fabric dynamics, about as accurately as possible, but I mean, when I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, damn, this is pretty accurate. This feels like it would respond the same way that, a curtain or something would respond if I were to pull it. How about this fractal generator? I mean, this thing is insane. You can zoom in and you can go, however deep you want with this shader. It's honestly quite ridiculous. You can also see that it's sort of pulsing and growing, and, we can increase the height and the size, the bloom, how much it sort of shines, dispersion, and so on and so forth. Speaking of simulation, I don't know if you guys have ever played this game, but this is essentially a collection of cells that are growing in a tube. Every time I press this button down, what I'm doing is I'm dropping some sand down. So it allows Opus-5 to design this environment where these cellular automatons are sort of climbing. I can also do, cause an oil spill here if I really wanted to, or maybe generate some steam underneath that, destroys a lot of that water and stuff like that. So this is pretty badass. It's fun that I can do that. I can also cause fire. I can regenerate starter scenes. I can stop time. I can do a lot. This over here is like a living predator-prey ecosystem where I can spawn new bunnies. These bunnies can then start consuming, grass in the environment. But then there's also what looks to be some foxes that are hunting. And so, I just caused a bunch of bunnies to appear. Let's get a bunch of foxes to appear, thin the herd a bit, shall we? And you can see what's happening is now there's a massive preponderance of grass here because the fox have just eaten all of them. However, the fox population is now crashing because there just aren't a lot more bunnies available to eat. How about this quadcopter flight simulator? Here we are with my little quadcopter drone. I don't know if you guys could hear, but the drone itself is literally making sound. And I'm just proceeding through my totally, procedurally generated environment. It looks like if I wanted to land, I'd hold X. So I'm just going to try that and then land my helipad right there. Nice, and I just did. So this is 100% like a game, and yeah, just code that in a few seconds. This one's a double-sided pendulum. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with what one of these do. Interestingly enough, it does kind of look like it screwed up the design in the top right-hand corner, although that is the first screw-up that I've been able to see so far. You can add as many pendulums as you want and like redo this. Nothing super special here. Let's move on to something cooler. Here it designed a pixel editor, so I'm actually capable of drawing, just like something in Microsoft Paint. We're very close to everybody being able to design their own sort of custom applications. But yeah, you can see how it has all the functionality. It has a little eraser functionality. I can, undo whatever I want. I can, I don't know, do some sort of onion skin or even multiple layers. So I can add an additional frame. And then what I can do is I can actually like make a movie where I have this be my first frame, this be my second frame, all the way up. So that's kind of neat. Hey, you could sort of forge something. You could even make the canvas bigger or smaller, which is kind of neat. And you see when I made it smaller, it does not look very happy with me. Here we're building sort of a sneaker configurator. So I'm not going to say this is the clearest and cleanest example of a sneaker I've ever seen, but I don't know. It looks like I can click on various things and change a bunch of this. So let me just shuffle, sort of change the design up. Maybe I want a new color here. That looks nice. That looks like maybe it's like a Nike style thing. I can change the material and they'll slowly change what's going on. I now have liquid chrome down. Looks like I can also save a render to my computer, which is kind of neat, or just stop it entirely. I can then move this thing around, click on different sections if I wanted to change things custom. Not going to lie, not getting a shoe vibe here, but I think the reason why is because Opus-5, it didn't just pull a shoe from the internet. What this did is it actually created these elements itself, which is a big step up because that sort of compositing is usually not what models do. We have what looks to be here a explainer graph showing the populations of different centers over the course of the last 126 years. So in the top right-hand corner, you can see the populations of New York change, London change, Tokyo change, and so on and so forth, while it explains it to us. So now we're moving over to Asia, and we're seeing that post-war Tokyo is now at 16 million. And, I can also drag this and move this however I want, with populations just getting increasingly interesting, I should say, as we go. I can also zoom in, zoom out, do all this fun stuff. Okay, this one's interesting. This is a wrecking ball simulator. And so I can actually drag this, move this around, and then push this towards this brick wall. And I'm not doing a very good job, mind you. Definitely not coming in like a wrecking ball. But yeah, you can see that that this is falling, which is pretty wild. You can also change the mass of the ball, make it heavier or lighter, which is kind of fun. Anyway, let's pretend I have a bunch of glass here. There you go. And there's even the little like slider progress bar that's asking, hey, how close am I to destroying the entire thing? Apparently 96%. So this thing's pretty close, yeah? I mean, this can virtually do anything that you would ever want it to do. And if it's not clear, the reason why I'm so excited about this is not because it can do all these things. Obviously, there are a lot of models out there now that can do things like this. But I think the way that it does the things is a little bit better than those models, a few percentage points better anyway. And I think more importantly, it's also way cheaper. And I'm going to show you guys this in a second, but this is far cheaper than any of the other major large language models, especially the ones at the frontier, for these sorts of tasks. So what's my take on this whole thing? Opus-5 is basically slightly more intelligent Fable at maybe half of Fable's costs. And so we see the cost of this website here, AirLens, which is sort of like a Mac or Apple style website, apparently trying to sell you some sort of 3D panels. Was 69 cents, whereas Fable 5's was 94 cents. And you can see that I actually think Opus-5 did a better job. I don't think the websites are really even comparable. If I open both of them up in new tabs, this is the one that Opus-5 just made, okay, where there's this cool kind of slide thing, keeping in mind that this is not, a resource it downloaded from the internet. It just made these resources with SVG. And then this is Fable's over here, which I think is just way simpler and probably a lot dumber in reality. So on to benchmarks, you could see Opus-5 here does pretty darn well on agentic terminal coding, so much so that it's actually considered better than Fable 5 at the same task, and far better than Opus 4.8, and even GPT 5.6 Sol, which scores a little bit above Fable 5, at least as of the time of this recording. On knowledge work, on GDP Val-AA v2, it scored 1861, so this puts it squarely above like the average human at knowledge work. At novel problem solving, using ArcAGI3, it scored 30.2%. Fable has not actually used this benchmark yet, so there's no stat here. Opus 4.8 scored 1.5%. So as a progression from, Opus 4.8 to Opus 5, at least in the Opus series, this is a massive step up. On agentic search, you see that it scored 90.8% on browse comp, a little bit better than Fable 5, significantly better than Opus 4.8, but essentially the same as GPT 5.6 Sol. Multidisciplinary reasoning, it scored 56.3% with no tools. But when tool augmented, it actually outperforms Fable at 64.7 to Fable's 63.9. So that'll be very useful, especially for long step sort of human knowledge work tasks. Computer use was 70.6, so we're seeing models get better at just using a computer the way that a human being would. Nothing super impressive on the agentic coding aspect. GPT 5.6 actually still outperforms all of them, so they were probably just deep trained on deep SWE v1.1. On agentic coding, you can see that it is essentially equal to Fable 5, although a big step up from Opus 4.8. And what's cool is there's this new automation bench, which I'm particularly interested in as somebody that does a lot of automations for businesses, and it scores 26% on that compared to 17.4% for Fable. And this is on building workflows for businesses. So, I mean, obviously it's a far cry away from humans. As of right now, basically a quarter of the time it's getting things right, but, it's a big step up from just a couple of generations ago. Legal is at 11.7%. Health is at 59.8%. And then what's interesting is biology. It scores 49.4% on hard problems, but 90.1% on human-solved problems, which is really, really interesting to see. One of my favorite breakdowns to date is the agentic computer's performance by effort level. Essentially, they will feed models a bunch of different tasks, and then they will see how many tokens and, conversely, how much money they needed to spend in order to complete those tasks. And so you can see over the course of a variety of effort levels from like super low effort all the way up to high, there's quite the range. And most of this range is actually caused by GPT 5.6 Sol, which has a massive sort of spread of cost per tasks and scores on their lowest reasoning level all the way up to their highest. Well, anyway, Claude models tend to cluster sort of at the top right-hand corner of this graph, which means there's less of a spread and also less of a task cost spread as well. So, if you think about it, the dumbest version of Opus-5 still scores about 60% on the vast majority of agentic computer use tasks for a cost of, I want to say, about $9 or so. That's probably what that looks like. As you progress up the reasoning ladder, the most intelligent models score something like 70% for about $22 a task, which is quite impressive, especially considering Fable 5, can score approximately the same, I want to say, as the mid-level of Opus 5, but it does so at nearly $50 as well. So massive cost saver there. Performance on the new automation bench is just leagues above virtually every other model. As you can see, they tend to cluster here around the, 15% pass rate or so. This is almost 25%. So big implications on people that want to use models like this to automate parts of their workflows. And I hate to say it, but we're pretty close to beating humanity's last exam. I mean, you could see here, even the dumbest version of Opus 5 scores somewhere around 56% or so. And the smartest one is almost 65% across the board for a cost per task of $3, which makes it not only better at Fable, better than Fable at this particular benchmark, but also markedly cheaper. And it's not even really comparable to Opus 4.8. There's also the Arc AGI 3 benchmark, and on novel problem solving by cost, it is just massive top right-hand corner here. You can see the vast majority of the other models, like Opus 4.8, GPT 5.6. So they didn't put Fable on this, I think just because they didn't run it on Arc AGI 3. But they all scored somewhere around 2%. And then over here, Opus 5 is just brutally mogging them all at like 31 or so. Finally, a mention about their alignment. Misaligned behavior is something that obviously large language model companies like Anthropic really want to crank down on. They hate when models do things, that are sort of subversive or things that a human being didn't really necessarily want the model to do in order to achieve the task. And as you can see here, Opus 4.8 on this 10-part score was a 2.85. Mythos 5, which is that massive cybersecurity disaster causer that led the US government to pulling back a lot of this access, was a 2.81. Sonnet 5 was at 3.35, but Opus 5 is way below all of them at 2.3, which really just tells you not only is this model smarter, significantly cheaper, significantly better at a lot of specific tool calling tasks like the automation bench and variety of terminal bench workflows, but it's also a lot safer, which really makes this a win-win across the board. What does this mean for AI more generally? Well, no real new crazy unlocks here. I mean, Opus-5 is continuing the slow and steady stream of improvements that we saw with Opus-4, Opus 4.5, Opus 4.7, Opus 4.8, and so on. This sort of thing comes at a good time because Kimi K3 obviously dropped, think about a week and a bit ago, and that really upset the quote-unquote balance of power between, these open source or Chinese models and then the more closed source now American frontier models. I think as we continue to go into the future, what'll probably happen is, these models are getting quite intelligent and they're getting quite ready and capable of disrupting human knowledge work at scale. Because of the economic implications, I would imagine that large AI model companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, now they're colluding with the US government, essentially. I think what'll probably happen is we're just going to see a slow and steady drip release of these models. But the actual intelligences, like the really big galaxy brain ones, the ones that are far smarter than anything we saw in this benchmark, I think those are going to repeatedly and more brazenly just stay behind closed doors. And unfortunately, I don't think us poor little normies are going to have access to them anytime soon. So do with that what you will, but hopefully now you know everything you need in order to crush it with Opus-5, integrated into your business workflows and more. If you guys like this video, definitely check out Maker School down below. It's my 90-day automation accountability roadmap where I will guarantee you your first customer selling something built by Opus-5 or a similar model in 90 days, or I'll give you all your money back. Have a lovely rest of the day.